everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Amanda, and today I wanted to briefly talk about one famous urban legend that's probably right up there with Bigfoot himself, the Mothman. Now, there is a ton of information out there about the Mothman, so we won't get to all of it today, but I wanted to give a brief history and talk about what it is that's made the Mothman so legendary. According to one source, starting on November 15, 1966, the people of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, an otherwise quiet town along the Ohio River, began seeing something strange in their community. That night was the first widely reported sighting of a creature known as the Mothman, described as a flying man with 10-foot wings and 7 feet tall with large eyes. In the sighting that started the town's belief in the creature, 2 young couples were out for a drive late at night when they saw it. Terrified, they left the scene and reportedly were chased by it at speeds of about 100 miles an hour. I'm just gonna pause there really briefly. How were they chased at 100 miles an hour? I mean, maybe they were going on the highway and they were going that fast, it was keeping up with them, but other than that, I don't really see how they could know that it was going 100 miles an hour, because wouldn't it have caught up to them? Just a quick note there, but from here, many in the town began to report sightings of the Mothman, as well as other extraordinary phenomena, such as UFOs and even the Men in Black. The happenings from disappearing dogs all the way up to the collapse of Silver Bridge in 1967 was pinned on the creature. However, like Bigfoot and other cryptids, belief in the Mothman defies any animal we have ever documented, and the presence of some other precognitive and psionic abilities brings the creature even further from the reality we know. Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette had their encounter, as we said, November 15, 1966. They reported their sighting immediately, and even said that they wouldn't report it alone. There were 4 of us who saw it, they say. From here, all evidence for the existence in Mothman remains anecdotal, circumstantial, such as weird footprints or clouds of dust, though these sightings remained widespread in the community until the supposed sightings at the collapse of Silver Bridge on December 15, 1967. Arguments against the belief typically state that the creature was actually just a large bird, such as an owl, heron, or even a sandhill crane. The sandhill crane is a bird that stands almost as high as a man and has a wingspan of more than 7 feet. It even has large circles of bare reddish flesh around the crane's eyes, possibly explaining both the creature's stature and the red eyes, although the crane was not really seen in that area during the time period of the sightings. Additionally, both couples reported that the eyes only glowed red when their lights shined on it, a fact that strongly suggests that the red eyes were simply a result of the red eye effect that is so common in flash photography. Once this all came into play, many cognitive errors could have reinforced it. While investigating the sighting, Deputy Millard Halstead found a cloud of dust that could have been caused by the bird, as well as strange footprints. These would be examples of post hoc reasoning, since they attribute the observed phenomena to a holy cause that they hadn't even directly observed. Confirmation bias may be present in the sandhill crane theory as well. The crane is likely the most plausible cause, but many would dismiss it since it wasn't native to the region. They cherry-pick that detail to dismiss the theory since no other good explanation exists. This dismissal strengthens their own belief in the creature, and third, because the sighting was so memorable and widely reported, the availability heuristic would come into play. People would begin to just associate any strange occurrences to the creature because it's easier for them to remember. Additionally, many signs of a pseudoscientific belief are present here, such as the retreat to the supernatural, the abundance of anecdotal evidence, and even the appeal to authority caused by police actively investigating the sightings. The Point Pleasant Registrar, Gettysburg Times, and Williamson Daily News were just a few sources all reporting on this. I don't know if there was nothing better to talk about, but I'm not here to judge. At least the Mothman seems like it's a pretty harmless thing to believe in, and it's even become part of the culture in that area. According to the West Virginia Historical Society Quarterly, the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which we mentioned, only gave way more credence to the legend. Some said it was caused by the Mothman, while others believed to have heard a sonic boom. Others say this was the curse of the cornstalk, a curse set upon the area by Native Americans, while the actual reason for the collapse of the bridge seems to be a fracture due to corrosion. But Well, that story doesn't sound as entertaining as a Mothman or a curse, I suppose. However, it wasn't until ufologist Gray Barker's 1970 book, The Silver Bridge, which talked about the Mothman, was released, that the Mothman legend truly started to gain even more traction and attention. John A. Keel, another ufologist, then wrote about the Mothman prophecies, again putting the monster in the spotlight. So now comes the question, is there any real proof? The Mothman is a legend, yes, but other than those sightings, is there any evidence or any multiple sightings with compelling evidence to prove his existence? Well, the short answer to that is not really. The Gettysburg actually published that a crane was more likely to be the Mothman, a large creature with red eyes, and the photos that are most known for documenting the Mothman's existence are still at best unproven. Snopes states, on November 20th, 2016, an unidentified man allegedly captured image of what he believed to be the Mothman, a flying humanoid monster that gained fame for terrorizing the West Virginia town of Point Pleasant in the mid-1960s. The photographer gave the pictures to a local news station at WCHS, claiming he took them while driving on State Route 2. The station aired the pictures in a 21 November 2016 report. The images are grainy and show the silhouette of a two-legged, winged creature flying around treetops. News reports about the recent sighting make it clear that the Mothman legend has ingrained itself in local culture and is not going anywhere. The creature has a statue in the middle of town, a festival, and a museum dedicated to him, and multiple local businesses use him as a draw for customers. Perhaps this could be like Virginia and the UFO sightings there, which I mentioned in a previous video, or even Roswell. The town takes advantage of the legends there, continue to spread stories, and monetize it into tourism. I don't see a true harm in believing in the fantastical, unknown legends such as these, as long as it's not getting out of hand and ruining anyone's life, of course. And as for the recent photos and what it may truly be, more speculation states it's probably an owl as opposed to the Mothman or a crane. According to Joe Nickel, an author and investigator with the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, the original Mothman likely owes its existence to a more mundane, though no less interesting culprit, an owl. How a nocturnal bird became an extra-dimensional entity reveals a little bit about human nature and a lot about a bird that seems custom-made to give humans the chills. Barn owls seem likely to Nickel in part because they already considered eerie. According to Ryan Barber, a researcher with the Barn Owl Project, they famously like to roost in old and abandoned buildings. They have an unsettlingly odd appearance, and their vocal repertoire is heavy on hisses and clicks. In South Texas, as well as Mexico, where part of Barber's family is from, barn owls are lechuza, shape-shifting witches that foretell foul fortune. Some of those who've declined our invitation to come out and do fieldwork with us are actually bird biologists, Barber says. They say that owls, especially barn owls, freak them out. There were other reasons to think of an owl was the culprit, Nickel says. The Mothman shape, as originally reported, is very owl-like, with a head and body that blend together. Yet, as Nickel investigated, he became less convinced that a barn owl was the answer. Linda Scarberry, one of the women in the original car, had reported seeing huge, glinting red eyes in the car headlights, a description backed up by following sightings. That sounded like the product of eyeshine, a feature found in nocturnal animals like dogs, cats, alligators, and yes, owls. But there was a problem, Nickel says. Barn owls have a relatively weak eyeshine, likely too weak to account for the haunting red eyes attributed to Mothman. Luckily, there was another candidate available, the barred owl, a large species with a rounded head, deep black eyes, and a loud, deep hoot that echoes through the dark. They prefer hollows in old trees and open forests and are common throughout the southeast. Officials in the former TNT area, now known as the McClintock Wildlife Management Area, confirmed to Nichols that a healthy population of barred owls live on the refuge. More importantly, barred owls have a dramatic crimson eyeshine due to the amount of blood vessels around the eye. To Nichols, the bird sounded like a match for the Mothman. We know that barred owls exist, he says. We know they were in McClintock WMA. We know that they have crimson eyeshine and otherwise fit the description, big-winged and so forth with silent flight. The assumptions you'd make for other hypotheses is that there are extraterrestrials, that they're able to come to the planet Earth, and they have creatures that look for all the world like a barred owl. But how do you go from a 17 to 20-inch owl to a 6-foot eldritch horror? In a 2010 episode of the television show Monster Quest, Nichols drove volunteers down a dark road lined with plywood Mothmen, complete with bike reflectors for eyes. None were able to correctly guess the size of the cutouts. It's very hard to judge the size of something seen at night at an unknown distance, and if you misjudge how far away it is, you misjudge its height by the same proportion, Nichols says. Frightened people also tend to fixate on the object of their fear, causing it to loom larger in their memory. Taken together with an unexpected encounter with a barred owl could make a memorable and potentially terrifying experience. I admit it does seem like, well, more than just a bit of a stretch to go from a giant Mothman to a barred owl. However, the silhouette of one in flight doesn't seem all that different from the silhouette of the photos Snopes showed earlier, so I don't think it should be discounted or discredited as a possibility. After all, what's more likely, a giant barred owl or a Mothman? I would say that the reason this became so big and so legendary is in part because of UFOologists being popular around that time. It wasn't until the late 1970s when the conspiracy theories seemed to become too elaborate and even potentially harmful or damaging, more frequently accusing the military of cover-ups and things of that nature. But until then, and during these times of the Cold War, I think it's fair to say that people were paranoid, and perhaps that fed into what the Mothman became today. But what do you think about the Mothman? Do you think that this is a town with too many barred owls, or an actual case of something suspicious wandering about? Let me know in those comments down below. Let me know if you want me to cover another legendary creature next and what it may be, and I will see you all in the next time. Bye guys!